All right, gentlemen, it appears that our little Bacta tank flashbacks in the Book of Boba Fett are over. Are you going to miss them?
No, not really.
I mean, they were good to have, but no, I'm not going to miss them.
Okay. Well, one thing is for certain, there is a lot of stories still to tell in the Book of Boba Fett. We'll talk about all of that and Doomsday and David Koresh in this episode. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was lit.
The Lego Star Wars game.
I haven't watched the trailer at all.
Well, the gameplay overview. Oh
Yeah,
my
whatever.
Lord. It doesn't look like just a good Lego game. It looks like a good Star Wars game.
Really?
Like it looks.
Have you watched
so
it?
awesome.
What'd you think about
It
it?
looks really good. And I sent it to Sam. I showed it to
Yeah,
him first.
I'm gonna spend way too many hours on that
Okay,
game.
well, that's cool. Well, welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. We are the only fan podcast to name as canon Star Wars creature and be endorsed by Ryan Johnson. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story, it is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story. And that is why we are talking about Fennec Shan's story in the Book of Boba Fett. We'll be giving our reaction to Superman and Lois, the latest episode of that. And we're going to be trying to wrap our heads around the chaos in the Moon Knight trailer. I'm David. I'm the dad.
Hi, Dad.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm honored to be joined this week, as I am every week, by my two amazing sons, Samuel the Hutt.
Howdy.
You got your Boba Fett.
I do. Gotta represent. Yeah. I mean, Book of Boba Fett might be bringing in a pretty major player sometime soon. That was nice.
Beautiful.
You could have just found the like.
No,
sound
it's
effect
better
and put
when
in
I
the
sing it,
post.
right? All right, BB Nate.
Yeah, well, Superman and Lois this week was certainly interesting, but sadly fell into the CW trap a little bit.
Ooh, ouch.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I do.
That's,
You'll know.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. The Moon Knight trailer came out. We talked about that last week.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
week, we're going to have to try to figure out everything that we thought we knew about the Moon Knight that seems wrong now. Anyway, this episode is sponsored by cufflinks.com. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring the show. They have over 3,000 items on their website from Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings, NFL, NCAA, Major League Baseball, NBA, and everything else that you can think of. We're very honored to be sponsored every single week by this amazing company. Thank you so much for doing that. Check them out. Please follow the show. If this is your first time listening to the show, which I think we're going to have some first time listeners this week.
Awesome.
I did an interview this morning with Brainy Pixel, which does Christian comics and stuff, and they tweeted out about it, and then all of a sudden we got a bunch of followers from them. So thank you,
cool.
for doing that. And they were like, we're going to check out the show. So thank you. If you're listening to us from the first time, we are super excited that you are here. Please subscribe to the show so that you don't miss a single episode. If you are a regular listener, thank you for coming back and being a part of our Tatooine Sons family. I am super excited about the interview that's coming out this Friday. It is with Adam Bray. A lot of people in the Star Wars and Marvel world know about Adam Bray. He's an author. But when I was researching Adam for our interview, I discovered that he may be the most interesting man in nerdery. And so nerdery is a real word, by the way.
Really?
If you look it up, it is in the dictionary.
There's a lot in the dictionary.
Does it mean what we mean it to
It does.
mean? Oh, okay.
It literally means like a collection of nerds.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it. And the first time I ever heard nerdery was in Tommy Boy.
Really?
Yeah. Richard
Yeah.
says, I'm going to return to the nerdery with my fellow nerds and all that. Yeah, it's a real thing. So anyway, he's, anyway, you'll want to check out that episode on Friday. But enough, or what is it I've been saying the last few weeks? Enough talking about what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Good job. The 4th episode of the Book of Boba Fett came out, and it finally filled the gap of Boba's story after the return of Jedi and Mandalorian. We also got a pretty huge tease at the end for something that could be really exciting. Could be coming in the next few episodes. We'll talk about that in the next. Are you going to do that every time?
Maybe.
Okay. All right.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then, keep your secrets.
Your coming to us is as the footsteps of Doomsday.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
You realize that the cybernetic mods and all
The mod parlor
that
is
was
what it's called.
it was basically a tattoo.
Oh, yeah,
parlor on
totally, of
Tatooine.
course. Yeah.
That was that. I've actually been. Do you guys know that I've been in like multiple tattoo parlors in my lifetime?
No.
Yeah, when I was doing legislative research,
I don't even know what that is.
we did. You remember when I was with National Write Your Congressman?
Vaguely. Yeah.
Okay, I was doing legislative research.
Okay.
And we'd had a bill that was being introduced that had to do with marijuana, and they asked us to go to a bunch of tattoo parlors. So
That must have been interesting.
I was in a bunch of
learn
tattoo parlors. It was
something new
awesome. It
every
was
day.
really cool people. They were some of the most awesome people ever. So
Interesting.
Anyway, yeah.
All right. Well, let's kick this episode off by getting y'all's ratings for this episode on a scale of 1 to 10, 6 armed chef droids.
All right, who's first?
You go first, Dad.
Me?
Yes, go. I think Nathan always goes first.
7.
All right.
7.5, maybe. It was fun. It was, it was a great episode. It like you said, it seems to me that the ones that flash back the most, I have less interest in because I already know that story to some extent. Okay.
Yeah.
And this one especially. But it was fun to see the relationship with Fennec Shand. I'm sure we'll talk about that more, but that was a lot of fun. What about you, BB Nick?
Yeah, I'd give it a 7.5. I think that it was well done, but I agree. When it's the more flashbacks, the more I'm like, okay, well, I know what's going to happen. They're going to make it out. Everything's going to be fine. And so now that we're getting more into the current timeline and we're forgetting about the flashbacks, funny enough, but yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd give it a 7.5. I mean, the flashbacks are kind of a necessary, not evil, but you need.
I understand what you're saying.
Right. You need to have them to understand the story, to, explain things, but that's just not what the main thing is about. And so I think that they made a point in this episode, which we'll get into, about that. See, we finally saw what kind of led up to Boba finding Fennec Shand, and then what he did to save her. That we saw a little bit that we saw him walking up to her in the end in Mando, but we didn't see anything after that. So we finally got to see what happened with then, as well as what took place after that between him reappearing later on in Mando. What were your guys' thoughts on that portion of the sequence? Him finding her, what he did to save her, all that stuff.
I'm letting Nathan go first on this because I have something I wanted to bring up.
It was interesting, a little strange about how we just decided to save this random stranger that he found on the ground, but I don't know, it kind of just, it established a relationship, it established this kind of this debt thing that eventually Fennec just wanted to stay and not just be in debt. So it was very interesting. I love seeing how all that started and kind of we figured out what happened after that tease in season 1 of Mandalorian.
Yeah. I think you make a really good point because I always assumed that Boba Fett knew Fennec Shand or had some, at least knew who she was.
He did.
He did.
Remember, he explained that at the end when they were sitting around the campfire.
Is that why he saved her, though?
No, I don't think so.
No, I think that's my point. He saves this person, then realizes it's Fennec Shand. I don't think he saves her because it's Fennec Shand.
Right, okay.
I always was under the impression he was going to save her. He saved her because he knew she was Fennec Shand, was like watching all of this happen, which that's not what occurs in the story at all. And then he goes and rescues her because he wants to partner with her for something. In the end, the result is the same, but the motivation is different.
He's more like a good Samaritan. It's because it's what the Tuscans did for him in a way.
Yeah,
it is really
rocky.
A good Samaritan story. Mom, I think, even brought that up in the show.
Yeah, I think so.
While we were watching it, which is a really interesting idea. But did you guys pick up the continuity error?
No,
I think there was one, but I'm not sure.
In that very moment. To the Mandalorian, season 1. So in season 1 of the Mandalorian, when that moment happens and you see the figure walking up that we learn is later Boba Fett, walking up to Fennec Shan, when you're listening to it, the reason everybody thought it was Boba Fett originally was because
I was
of the
listening
Spurs.
for it. Yeah, there were the Spurs.
There were.
Were there?
There was.
Yeah, they
but
were
the
quieter.
Spurs were part of his cost. His.
Yeah, I noticed that though. Where did the Spurs come from?
That's my problem. My problem with it.
Because he was walking on earlier in this episode. He was walking. He didn't have the Spurs, and I'm like, if they're gonna bring in Fennec in this, where are the Spurs? And then he just had them. So
anyway, I mean, I was sitting there and I was kind of like,
maybe that's like a standard issue thing for boots in Star Wars. Like all boots have the Spurs.
Or maybe
sound
he
on
went
them.
to the mod parlor and just got like just stuck boot Spurs.
well, in case he had to do, go 8 seconds on a bantha.
Yeah.
You had to have the Spurs in there to get the
Yeah, that's totally what
maybe
it was.
not. Okay.
I don't know, but I did notice that actually. I thought that was funny. But I mean, that whole flashback sequence, I mean, it was long. It was, the majority of the episode, which is always kind of, it can be hit or miss with this show. But there were a lot of fun moments in it. I mean, there was the heist that happened. I mean, that was the main point of him. Well, not the main point, but like, he saved her and was like, hey, I need your help getting my ship back. Can you do that? And we'll call it even, right? And that whole scene was fun. They were running around the kitchen with the droids and that little rat catcher droid or whatever. We had seen that before in Clone Wars, but this is the first time we'd ever seen it in live action.
In the Meeber Gascon episode, Stephen Stanton actually shared some stuff about that.
That's George Lucas's favorite arc is the Quiet Day.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say to that.
I mean, it makes sense when you think about it that he would love that arc the most.
He is a trippy dude.
He really is,
man.
But that was fun, and then him, of course, getting the Slave One back was classic. And then there was that Sarlacc scene. What were y'all's thoughts on him going back to find his armor? That was a little
I was just
weird.
confused about why he was going back, but I'm sure he just probably forgot that the Jawas took it or something.
I mean,
and forgot where it was and just assumed it would be in the Sarlacc.
Yeah, because when he woke up and came to, he was not in his armor, so maybe he just didn't remember it.
Again, it feels like a continuity error to some extent because in chapter 9, season 2, episode 1 of The Mandalorian,
right?
That's the Cobb Vanth episode. Cobb Vanth has Boba Fett's armor. We see that whole sequence take place, that whole storyline take place, and then at the end we get that glimpse of Boba Fett,
right?
My thought process was when does this happen? When does that moment happen? Where are we in this story so far?
It can't.
I just feel like my continuities my timelines may be thrown off right now.
Yeah, they haven't established a clear timeline with the events of these flashback sequences. But it can't be right. But it can't be. He was probably with the Tuscans for a while, like a good few years.
That has to be because Mandalorian takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi.
But then him finding Fennec couldn't have happened more than a few months.
Exactly.
Before he shows up again. But they didn't really establish much of a timeline for us. So
it's I'm still vague on it, I guess.
Yeah. And then everybody, I think, has decided that the best scene of this entire series so far is that flyby shooting he does there on the Kenton Striders or whatever. What were y'all's thoughts with that? Because that was a pretty cool scene.
Yeah, just anytime you get to see Slave One or the fire spray. What did they call it?
Fire spray. It's like
the model,
right? Yeah. Like the Falcon.
But what did he call it exactly? Because he didn't call it fire spray.
No, he
called
said
it my fire spray gunship.
My fire spray gunship.
Yeah,
right. Which would be just calling it like a YT Corellian freighter.
Freighter, right?
I mean, there's the YT Corellian freighter, and then you have the Millennium Falcon.
Right.
So I don't think that they, this whole idea of the renaming of it is being blown out of proportion.
I agree. Yeah,
Like,
they're
if
not uncanonizing.
If you went to somebody stole your car. Say you have a name for your car.
Betty.
Yeah, Betty. So
I call
say
my car Betty. My Mustang I call Betty.
Say somebody stole Betty, and then you went to somebody and say, "Hey, can you help me look for Betty?"
They wouldn't have any idea what I was talking about.
Hey,
Right.
can you look for my Ford Mustang?
My 2008
Yeah,
Ford Mustang
exactly.
GT. That would have been the way I would describe it. It makes perfect sense.
To a stranger, they don't
BB-8
know
dropping
Betty.
some truth here
you go.
with it. Anyway, I loved it. It was fun to see him firing upon that. It
Yeah.
was fun. And going back, just thinking when I see the Slave One firing, I automatically, my mind goes back to Attack of the Clones because that's when we see it there. And so I do think it was pretty flippin' awesome that he destroys the Sarlacc
with the seismic charge.
with the seismic charge.
Right, yeah.
I mean
they
that
had
was
to.
classics. If you're a Boba Fett fan, that's pretty cool. But I loved it. What did you think about the fire spray?
Oh,
and
I thought
Slave One?
the Slave One that was an interesting plot. I thought it was a good way to introduce the relationship and chemistry between Fennec and Boba. I thought that kind of just it felt weird. The ending of the flashbacks felt super rushed. Just like, okay, let's cut through these couple clips and then boom, we're at the timeline we are at now. So it felt a little off, but overall, I think that it was a very fun sequence and it led to a good ending.
I felt like that was the most Boba Fett sequence of the whole show.
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
far.
Yeah.
So then after the flashback, we kind of hear Boba. We see Boba go to recruit Chrysanthemum from that cantina bar. I don't remember what they're calling it right now. After he has a speciesist outburst at some Trandoshans there.
That was
and just
awesome.
goes nuts on them. What did you guys think about that? Just to start,
I thought that was funny, and it introduced, even in just that little scene, it introduced world building for the galaxy.
Yeah.
Just the hate between the Trandoshans and the Wookiees, and just how even though he had his whole tab could have been wiped if he just let him go, he didn't, and it built that hate up, and it was really interesting. It built it built his character as well, and so I think it was a great scene, even though it was pretty, just a side scene. So,
Yeah, it didn't have a lot of bearing
it
on the
did not.
storyline, but it was super fun also to literally, for them to go there for him to rip that
rip the guy's
off,
arm. Yeah.
with it was, and then the reaction, I can't remember Jennifer Beals' character's name.
I don't even know if she
I have
has
to
a
look
name
it up
yet.
every time I put out a Facebook post or a Twitter post that mentions that character. I have to look it up anyway. But for her to be like, okay, and just
Like,
move on
that
with
sucks. All right.
this happens every day, and
It's Tatooine.
and it does happen every day on Tatooine. It happens in A New Hope when when Ben Kenobi slices off the dude's arm with
Just
it.
like it's another day.
It's another day at the bar on Tatooine.
And then, Max Rebo and them just go back to playing.
Isn't that fun? And then you have Rex too. You have Rex from Star Tours.
You have that type of droid. That's not Rex.
That's not Rex. So.
I thought it was.
No, because Rex is on Bad 2 right
Not yet.
Yeah.
No, that's 20 years later, 30
it's
years
just that
later.
type of
It's just that
droid.
type of droid.
No, I think that they've confirmed it's the Rex. It's Rex.
It's Rex.
I don't think it's Rex.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Rex
I don't
was
think it is.
a
Tweet to us
Sabacc
and let us know. Okay.
But most excitingly, I think the most exciting part of this episode was when Fennec was discussing with Boba, saying that a war is coming. They need to hire some muscle. And Boba's like, we've got, I don't remember exactly what he says, but he implies that he knows of some muscle.
He knows a place where he can hire him.
Right. And then we hear we hear the Mando theme.
Ludwig, you can hire me if you want to have a vocal version of this on a track for season 3 of The Mandalorian. Let me know. I'll come into studio.
yeah.
First of all,
do
the fact that you think that Ludwig
Gordonson listens to our show.
Obviously. Jeez, come
I'll tag him on it on Twitter so he'll listen now.
I mean, I have been listening to the Boba Fett theme a lot recently. It's a good theme. I like it. But so do you guys think that we're getting Mando in a future episode of this series, maybe episode 2 or the second to or last episode? Or is this more of a setup for season 3 of Mando?
You don't put that in there with 3 episodes left for it to be a setup. It's too much time for them to just tease that and then just move on.
Okay.
He's gonna show up. You don't put the theme in there if he's not gonna show up. there's definitely this war going on. He's definitely wanting to hire some muscle, and he knows that Mando can do the job now. So we're definitely getting Mando sometime soon. Maybe the next episode is trying to recruit him. Maybe we get some plot lines that are going to be set up for season 3.
Okay.
Maybe we don't know what's going to happen, but we will see Mando in this series.
That's bold.
I want to go
prediction.
back to some of the early conversations about the Book of Boba Fett, not with our show necessarily, but in generally, like in the press and social media and interviews and such. At one point, they were describing this show as The Mandalorian season 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of have been thinking that's the case more and more.
Exactly.
And so I think they are setting up everything that they're getting ready to tell in The Mandalorian with the rest of this series, the rest of this situation. And I think that's why you bring in Mando, so it bridges.
So you think we see Mando and it's a setup for season 3?
Yeah, that's what I'm
of
saying
Mando.
too. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. I like that because, I mean, one thing that we have been kind of frustrated about with this series so far is why. Why does this exist? There's no real implications that have come out of this series at all so far. So even if nothing major is really revealed in this series, having it be a sort of like catalyst or setup for season 3 Mando will help. Much like a Solo kind of thing or a Rogue One. I mean, they're not really are required viewings to understand the rest of the story, but it still provides that extra info. And I would be okay with that for this sort of a series.
Well, and it also kind of ties into the idea that The Mandalorian is told in chapters, chapter 1 through now 16. And now we have the Book of Boba Fett, which
It's like an anthology
It's like an anthology that's tied into it. You okay there, buddy?
No, I'm
You're
not.
still fighting that cough. I
Yeah,
know.
it's just a tickle right there.
But anyway, yeah, I think that's exactly what we've got going on in here. And I think, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah. So now that there are presumably no more flashback sequences coming, what do you guys think that we're going to see in these next 3 episodes? And what do you want to see now that this series isn't tied down by having to review the past?
I'm really wanting to see this war with the Pikes. We haven't seen much of the Pikes.
Yeah, they haven't
in
done
any of
anything.
Star Wars. We have not seen much of the Pikes. So now that we're getting more of that, it is very exciting. It's nice to see. I've always loved the whole underworld of this show. And now that we're diving more into that, not having to worry about the flashbacks with the Tusken Raiders or 10 minutes of just rituals at the end of an episode or anything like that, we're going to be moving on to this part of the show. What I was hoping for the show to be.
Okay.
So I think we're getting a lot of that. I think we have a potential of just getting some awesome scenes with Boba and Mando. More of that.
I
More
hope.
of those
Those
interactions.
two- yeah.
I'm excited to see that. Maybe we're getting some setups for what happened to Grogu. Maybe if it's just a conversation with Mando
Yeah.
and Boba, but knowing what's going on would be very nice.
Like
at
hearing,
least in this,
you know,
in this time.
Boba talking with Mando. Mando's like, I hollow time him every night before he goes to bed.
Sing him a little lullaby.
Sings him a little lullaby, you know. He's talking to Luke. Make sure.
The question that you have to ask yourself is when he does that, does he take off the helmet
Yes,
or not?
yeah, of
always.
course.
He makes sure Luke leaves the room. And
Well,
then,
everybody
I don't
saw
know,
it.
everybody
that's true.
saw
That's
it.
true.
I think we almost need to revisit that final episode of
I think that's
of the
I'm all right
Mandalorian
with
season
that.
2.
Yeah.
And the reason being I think that when that happened in December of 2020, is that when it was?
Was it really that long
Yeah,
ago?
it was
Holy
December of
cow.
2020. When that happened, the focus afterwards, the conversation afterwards, everything about that episode was Luke Skywalker.
Right.
And we sort of I don't know if we ever really talked a lot and focused on what was happening in the story with Moff Gideon and Bo-Katan. I think we did to some extent.
We did, but we didn't. It was just a lot of speculation.
I think that's the story that we need to be researching again and going
Right.
back for to try to understand what's going to be what could potentially happen the rest of the way.
I wonder if that conversation with Boba will be like, yeah, I mean, I dropped him off with this guy named Luke Skywalker, and Boba's like,
Oh my God.
oh, that guy.
I never thought about that. That relationship, he knows that.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that Boba didn't stick around on the
Right.
ship.
Yeah.
I never thought
That
about
would
it.
probably
that
be
way.
dead right now.
Yeah.
Dad, do you think there's still any chance for Crimson Dawn at this point.
I do, and I think the reason
You're
is
still holding hope.
I do, and I think the reason is being kind of what you just talked about, BB Nate, the Pike syndicates. You know, that we've talked about this going back to Solo. Crimson Dawn has a relationship with the Pikes. I think that that's all there. I don't know what's happening in the comics right now when it comes to Crimson Dawn in this era, and if they're talking about this alliance with the Pikes. But I'm going to go ahead and hold out hope that that is what is going forward with this. I do think that the big surprise reveal could be something like a Prince Shizor or something like that later on in this. They're doing some really cool things in this series with non-human creatures. They're doing, you know, the Gamorrean guards look like Gamorrean guards. You've got Trandoshans fighting. You've got
awesome Wookiees.
You've got the Wookiees. You've got Twi'leks, like all over the place. In this, you've got the what's Hondo Anaka? What is his species?
Weequay?
You had a bunch of them in this. So you've got all these weird creatures, and so I think that the makeup and the costuming, the creature building side of this has been a really big part of this show.
Yeah.
So bringing in someone like a Prince Shizor and something like that would be a lot of fun with it as well.
Do you think that maybe Crimson Dawn is the big baddie for Mando season 3?
I was thinking it's possible.
I don't think you can bring that in now just to end the storyline in 3 episodes.
No, I don't think so. And somehow I feel like it could connect to Mandalore, because that's always been a very important planet in all of controlling for the galaxy.
Yeah, and
it's always been a war ground.
Maul was a leader of Mandalore for a hot minute.
He even as a crime syndicate lord wanted to take over Mandalore for its benefits. And so the Crimson Dawn trying to go for it again would make sense. And then the battle for Mandalore and seeing all
and
that.
And now that Mando has the Darksaber and stuff, I think he's got merit.
Between Mando and Bo-Katan in that war is going to happen. Seeing maybe Bo-Katan betrays Mando at some point.
Yeah, I hadn't tied the Maul piece into this the way that you just did.
More and more I think about it, I like this, because then that not only combines the Mandalore side of Mando, but it combines the crime syndicate side of Boba, bridging both the stories, so everything feels coherent.
Pretty cool.
I like it. I hope they do that, because that would be one masterful bit of storytelling. But there are only
in Filoni we trust.
Well, there are only 3 episodes left in the series, as we've been saying, and we're hoping for pretty much an all-out brawl with the Pikes, I think. Maybe even another interested party. But be sure to tune in tomorrow to see what unfolds.
Yeah. Pretty cool. What are we talking about now?
Bad news.
I don't know. That's up to you, Dad.
Oh,
You're the one.
Bad news.
Is it bad this week?
Oh, well, there's only, Marvel has all of the clickbait headlines this week. And they have all the fun in bad news. But we're also going to include a shout out to one of you for helping us with this week's segment.
This is not going to go the way you think.
Hey, so we got our cufflinks, our French cuff shirts back in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, 2 of us got to wear them yesterday.
Yeah, y'all, I didn't catch the memo yesterday.
Well, there wasn't a memo. We just knew we had our shirt. So, BB, so you did like a full Marvel DC crossover yesterday?
I did Batman socks, Batman tie, and Batman tie bar, and then Spider-Man cufflinks.
I like it.
Might as well. Yeah.
You don't have any Batman cufflinks yet, do you?
I don't, no.
Okay.
I don't have any Boba.
We need to get you some Batman cufflinks, because you've like made a vow. Is this like a...
Yes, it is a promise.
Okay.
And I'm going to be wearing the Batman stuff, at least the Batman tie and tie bar every week until Batman comes out.
You're pretty excited about
Really?
this.
Oh, I am pumped.
In a big way. Sam, you did still continue to wear cufflinks.com.
Oh, always, every week. Yeah, I mean, I just wore my Mando tie, and it's got that Mythosaur skull, and then the hyperspace tie bar and the Mando Mythosaur socks. It's pretty much my go-to every week.
I wasn't anticipating being as dressed up as I ended up being yesterday, but at 6:30 in the morning, I got a call from the worship leader at the church that she wasn't going to be able to lead worship because she has COVID. And so
you had to fill in.
Somebody had to fill in. So I got to do it. So I wanted to go in there, looking my absolute Sunday best. So I had my full suit on. I had a red tie. I had my gold Spider-Man cufflinks on for leading worship yesterday. We'll need to check out the Batman stuff for you, BB Nate. But they don't just have, Batman and Marvel and DC and all that kind of stuff. They have a lot of other stuff as well.
Yeah, it got over 3,000 items on the website. Like you said, it's got cufflinks and ties and tie bars and socks, but also money clips and tons of other stuff you might want.
Yeah.
What are some of the different franchises or fandoms that they have on the site?
Oh, they have like everything. I was looking at there just a couple days ago, and they have so much stuff.
And it's not just like the stuff that we like. It's like Disney.
Yeah,
it's like
Disney.
Harry Potter and all
so
that.
much. I think there's even like Lord of the Rings stuff on there,
Which we like,
It's insane. Yeah, we love Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. So I mean, if somebody wanted to buy this, could they save money if they
could?
Oh,
They
man,
could.
if only there were a way.
This is a fantastic segue. Use the code Tatooine15 at checkout to receive 15% off everything on the site with no minimum order required.
That's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good deal.
Absolutely. So head on over to cufflinks.com today. Remember to use that code BB8 just talked about, Tatooine15 at checkout. Save a lot of money.
Well, you want the bad news or the really bad news?
All right. First headline, MCU officially scraps 2 highly anticipated series.
Oh, no.
Whoa.
In 2022.
That's insane. That's big. Why haven't we
Absolutely.
talked about this more?
I know. Shout out to Jawan Derricks, who brought this one to our attention on Facebook. We had actually just shared a comicbook.com article, which, by the way, they never show up in bad news.
No, because
comicbook.com is actually a legitimate
reputable.
news source. Anyway, they shared an article and they put out an article. We shared it with the first look at Emilia Clarke and Samuel L. Jackson from the set of Secret Invasion.
I haven't seen it yet.
It looks cool.
haven't?
While nothing has been officially released about the show as far as when it's going to be out or anything, reputable outlets pretty much are all in agreement that the series is going to premiere sometime in 2022.
Okay.
Jawan commented on our Facebook post that he was laughing because he had just seen another article saying that the series had been scrapped.
I'm getting mixed signals here.
Exactly. So Jawan shared the link with us from InsideTheMagic.net, which uses the highly clickbaity language claiming that Secret Invasion and What If Season 2 were scrapped, when in reality, that's not even in the article, which only goes on to say that the 2 series may or may not be released in 2022.
Wow, that's
I'm
clickbait.
going to go ahead and give that a big old clickbait level of 10. And thank you, Jawan, for sending us that article. And if you're listening to this right now, you find a perfect article for bad news, please share it with us on Facebook or Twitter, and you might get a shout out in the next episode like Jawan did this week. So who's next?
Yeah,
Samuel
that
L.
would be me.
That would be me.
Doctor Strange 2 leaked a set photo. Features look at Tom Cruise as Iron Man, believe it or not.
Really?
I believe not.
I'm getting a little bit of deja vu here because I thought we had kind of talked about this.
Well, that was a fan art last week.
Oh, so now we've got actual proof.
We do.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Epic Stream has made its way back into bad news this week with a story that teases a photo of Tom Cruise in the Iron Man suit on the set of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Questions begin to swirl when you click on the article, and the image referenced is nowhere to be found. All we get is a little...
That's a bad sign for an article.
All we get is a little description of a photo where we learn that it's actually Cruise in a mocap suit.
Okay.
A little digging online reveals a grainy photo of what might be Tom Cruise in some sort of suit that might be a mocap with no other reference to anything discernible from Doctor Strange 2. That's getting clickbait 9. Also, why would they put that in there? Like, it made sense for Andrew and Toby to show up in...
You know
Spider-Man?
the theory behind this. Do
What?
you want to
It's like a
can we expand
Go
on
for
this?
it.
ahead.
The theory is that he that this version of Tony Stark is actually going to have killed Thanos and taken 3 of the stones, the Infinity Stones, and then he is using those powers as part of the Iron Man suit, and he's like gone pretty dark.
Okay,
it's Infinity
that's
Ultron.
great. But what I'm saying is it made sense to have the different actors for Spider-Man show up because they've been previously established. Why do you bring Tom Cruise in for
The only
this one?
reason is because he was supposedly one of the original individuals that was being considered for it.
Okay.
So, anyway.
All right, whatever.
Well, one of the most anticipated Marvel movies is being delayed.
Really?
This alarming headline from Giant Freaking Robot is a powerful lesson in hyperbole. While it sounds like a major Marvel film is being delayed from theaters, this isn't what's going on. All the article discusses is a shooting delay of 2 weeks on the set of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever that has already passed. No announcement that the film won't make its anticipated release date of November 11th. This gets a clickbait level of 10.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Absolutely. All right.
It's up to you now, Dad.
I think it's up to you.
It is up to me.
Yeah,
When we planned out this episode, we did it. Oh, that was last week's. We were going to talk about Moon Knight all over again. I'm confused about Moon Knight. You guys are going to have to help me try to piece this all together because what I saw in the Moon Knight trailer is not what I expected after what we talked about last week.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that next.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
Scooter cornered me at Sonic on Wednesday night after church when we all went to eat there, and he was like, I need to talk to you. And I thought it was like something like serious,
Right.
like big. And so like,
What, Moon Knight isn't serious?
well, I mean, it is, but I mean, he sits down next to me on the seat. It's freaking cold. It's like
It
45
was not that
degrees.
cold.
And he was sitting down there and he's like, what did you think about that Moon Knight trailer? Did you guys know that he's like a super Moon Knight fan?
Really?
Not
Yeah.
like one of these people that is pretending to be
Yeah, I
now
know.
because there's a movie
Like
coming,
that
a TV
meme you
show.
shared?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like he's been reading the comics for decades.
Really?
He
That's
is
cool.
obsessed with, it's his favorite Marvel character.
Really?
Yeah, so he's super excited about that. But anyway, so in kind of it was this weird trippy thing Monday evening. We watched. We decided to record the podcast and talk about the Moon Knight as a character,
Sunday.
and then
It was the day before.
We recorded it. We recorded it Monday.
We recorded Monday,
Just
last
early
week.
Monday.
We did.
He doesn't pay attention. Yeah, so we recorded it early in the day. Anyway, so we recorded it, and then they released the trailer that night. And it is kind of coincidental. Did you know that was a full moon that night?
Was it really?
I think that was on purpose.
Do you think that they did that on purpose?
It had to be.
They better have done that on purpose.
Yes.
We're going to chalk it up to it was on purpose.
Yeah, it has to have been. That would have been classic Marvel right there.
Right.
To do that. Let's get your general reaction to the Moon Knight trailer. You guys have watched it a few times. Let's start with you, BB Nate. What was your thoughts on the
I
trailer?
thought it was really fun. Definitely a different tone than anything we've gotten in the MCU before. Very trippy, strange, dark in a lot of ways. But
dark because
honestly, when I say a different tone than anything we've gotten in the MCU, I get worried because Eternals was definitely a different tone than anything we've gotten in the MCU before, but it wasn't a good tone. It just didn't fit. I think that this might work because it's a solo character. It's building one character over 6 episodes that are all 50 minutes each.
Yeah.
It allows more time for that tone to build and not just 2.5 hours with.
So has it been
characters.
confirmed that it's 6? I think it's 7 episodes.
We've gotten confirmed that we're going to have 2 different types of formats for the MCU shows. WandaVision with 8 episodes of 30 minutes each or 6 episodes of 50 minutes each. This is more turning, it's not confirmed yet, but it's looking like it's going to be a 6 episode, 50 minute one. Like Loki, like Falcon Winter Soldier, like Hawkeye.
Okay. Samuel the Hutt, what did you think about the trailer?
I was confused, but still very excited to see where it goes. Like Nate said, it does have a different tone, but I think what didn't work is Eternals felt more like a drama almost.
I'm not sure what it was.
Like a character drama. I don't know. This feels like a psychological thriller, honestly. And I'm okay with that feel in the MCU. Again, they've got to play their cards right because they're dealing with some sensitive stuff, and it's tough right now. And it does look very different than the story of Moon Knight that we are vaguely familiar with.
Yeah.
But I'm still excited for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I'm confused by this one, but let's talk it through a little bit here. First thing we need to think about is this Stephen Grant or is this Mark Spector that we're talking about? The Moon Knight that we were expecting based on our look that we had last week at the history of the character in the comic books. It kind of had us expecting the Mark Spector in Chicago type character. Instead, we get Stephen Grant. We get him in London. at this in the story, but the differences are even greater than that. The Stephen Grant of the MCU appears to be very different than that uber rich one of the comics, sort of the Bruce Wayne, like we were kind of teasing about that a little bit last week, BB Nate. This Stephen is really eccentric, even to the point of playing into some of the nerd tropes.
Okay.
With it, and very clearly disturbed. How do you I'll start with you, BB Nate. How do you feel about this unexpected direction that the trailer reveals?
I don't mind it. Honestly, with a character this is not a hugely popular character for Marvel. I know people really love it. I'm excited to see what happens, but not a lot of people know about it.
Right.
So
would you say it has a cult following?
Yes. Yeah, that's funny. But I do think that this changing this direction is going to allow for better storytelling opportunities for what they want to do with Moon Knight, not being constricted to the comics, but allowing them to tell this story. And I'm a firm believer that this whole series is going to be through the lens of the Stephen Grant personality, with him learning about his other personalities through it as we learn through that. Maybe Mark Spector is in Chicago and he just travels all the time with his different personalities, because we have no clue what happens or how long these personality takeovers happen, because obviously they're not happy with him at work, probably because he's gone for a few days at a time. So we're not quite sure what's going to happen with that.
What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, it is, again, like I said, very different than what we were expecting. But I think, like what Nathan was saying, it's not a super well established character in the general public's minds. So, for the casual fan who's going to pick this up, they're not going to have any background on Moon Knight, so they're going to be perfectly fine with whatever they do. The only reason we know something different about this character is because we have a podcast and we have to do research outside of things. So outside of people who have no life and a podcast and have to do this stuff, or the people who have been reading the comics for a while, this isn't going to really ruffle any feathers. I still think they're going to do something great with this. Again, the MCU is a very established universe, so they probably have to adjust the character a bit for it to fit. Again, it's in a different timeline than it was before, so he can't necessarily be the Holocaust survivor or the son of Holocaust survivors. So they just have to change stuff. But I think that's okay. I do think, like what Nathan said, we're going to see this through Stephen's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stephen's eyes as we learn about the other personalities. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if by the end of the series, we start watching it through another person's eyes, like maybe Mark Spector, once that becomes more established and we understand it. So I think that's what's going on right now, yeah.
The trailer opens with Steven lying in his bed trying not to sleep. He's actually playing with a Rubik's Cube, which I think kind of teases this confused, chaotic nature of the character. Everything is messed up. Everything he's even using one hand. To fidget with it. And it's a really interesting metaphor, I think. And I could spend way too much time thinking about that because I already have. But anyway, we then see Steven, he's actually chained to his bed.
Yeah.
And then he has a line of sand surrounding it.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. It suggests that he's worried about like what he's doing after he falls asleep. Like he wants to see if he crosses that line and if it's messed up when he wakes up in the morning or something. All of this really seems to reveal that we're not really getting an origin story for Moon Knight, but instead we're actually picking up after that Khonshu moment that we talked about on the last episode. Sam, what do you think about that idea of not having an origin story?
I agree. I think that's what they're going for there. He even gets that phone call later on, which this is just me being weird and I'm adding in my own little thoughts here, but I was listening to the music in the trailer or whatever. I hadn't really heard the song before, but they were picking lines from it that fit the story perfectly. I mean, it's like some hip hop kind of song.
Yeah, it's about.
They're like saying, like, my mind.
Literally is talking about like his own mental disorder. I think,
right.
In that.
And it's saying like day and night, my mind is like, pick up the phone when he's picking up the phone. It was great trailer editing there, which of course I noticed the music and the sound and stuff because that's like my thing. And you probably noticed that too, right, Nate? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But he gets that phone call. It's in like a wall or something hidden weird. And he answers and some lady's on the phone. She's like, oh my gosh, Mark, what happened? Where'd you go? Something to that effect. And he's like, why did you call me Mark? Not like, I think you have the wrong number or right. I don't know who are you? He's like, why did you call me Mark? Like that resonated with him. So I think you're right. I think that this has been going on for a while and maybe he buried that personality to try and not deal with it because it even says later on in the trailer to embrace, which I know we'll go here. No, but embrace the darkness. I think is what he says.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
embrace the chaos.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
Chaos. Yeah,
but no, I really am interested in seeing this whole chaotic side of him, and like you said, the whole Mark Spector call. I didn't get the vibe of. Are you okay, Mark? I got the where are you kind of.
I even think she says, you're alive or something like that. Yeah.
It kind of like concerned and frustrated in certain ways. Even to the point, like what you said, Sammy, he said, Mark, he feels like he knows about this other personality to him. And he's worried about it coming back, to the point where he feels like he can't control it. I mean, he's taking everything against it. He's chaining himself to his bed. He's putting lines of sand around it.
I mean, you were watching Split recently, which the character in that has the same personality disorder, just even worse. But each of the personalities is aware of the other.
They all know the other ones.
So his might be different.
Well, I'm not sure if what the context. I'm trying to remember the context of what Steven is saying in this opening lines of this, where he's talking about his not being able to sleep, not wanting to sleep, because he can't tell the difference between when he's dreaming and when he's awake. Mm-hmm. And so, it's a really good point that you bring up, BB Nate. When he hears that name Mark, he doesn't react like, who the heck is Mark? He knows.
Yeah.
That was it. You said it.
Yeah, I was like, why? He's like, why did you call me that? Not like, who is this? You got the wrong number.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you have that idea, and it's like maybe that is the character he thinks is in his dream. Mm-hmm. That he's dreaming the Mark here.
So how would they know who that is?
Exactly. With that. So that's a really interesting thing. About halfway through the trailer, we do get our first glimpse of Ethan Hawke's villain. The trailer subtitles reveal him to be the character of Arthur Harrow. Harrow only appears in a single issue of Moon Knight. But he's clearly going to be a much more significant character in this series. What we know about the character from what we've heard so far about the series is that he's known as the leader of an organization called Omnium. And then Ethan Hawke has actually said that he's patterned the villain after David Koresh. David Koresh is an American cult leader responsible for the infamous 1993 Waco siege, which is really bizarre that we were having a conversation about that at the dinner table last night. Anyway, this cult leader...
It came up naturally.
It did, yeah, exactly. This cult leader in Persona has some fans connecting this version of Harrow with another Moon Knight villain because of the persona that he seems to be giving off. He's called the Sun King.
Moon Knight, Sun King.
Exactly. This character is he is a major foil of Moon Knight in the comics, and he believes he's the embodiment of the Egyptian sun god Amun-Ra. So Nate, we've got Sun King, we've got Moon Knight, we've got Amun-Ra, we've got Khonshu, the moon god. Are we getting a major battle between mythological gods in this?
This is definitely an interesting concept. Of course, we've always known that with Moon Knight, mythological gods have always been a big part of that storyline. They're kind of make him who he is. So the fact that they're bringing that into this is very interesting, and I'm very excited to see it because we're also getting, just that weird. I think that was Khonshu we saw in the trailer.
Yeah, we do get a
walking down the hallway.
Walking down the hallway. So we see that. We know he's in this series. We know that we're getting all of these gods, and the DC fan of me is excited because that happens a lot in the comics. Battles between gods happens all the time, and it's always a really epic story. So seeing that put into the MCU and seeing that put into live action even with a character like Moon Knight is just very intriguing, and I'm super excited to see what they'll do with it.
Yeah, I like it. I think it sounds great. I mean, mythological gods are nothing new to the MCU. You've got Loki and Thor and Odin and all that. So bringing in some Egyptian mythology, I think would be pretty neat. But this is kind of a side note, but you'd mentioned seeing Khonshu for a moment. Mm-hmm. But when Moon Knight's in the bathroom or whatever that is, beating the crap out of something.
That's Khonshu.
Is that Khonshu? Well, I don't know if it's Khonshu.
Looks a lot like him.
But it isn't a person.
It is not.
No, it's not.
I always thought it was a person from the initial trailers. It's definitely some weird creature.
They've re-edited that since the teaser. If you go back and you watch the original teaser from Disney Plus Day, you can't tell anything about that character, the figure that he's pummeling until now you get to this trailer and you can tell he's this big, massive, weird creature.
So it seems like they're taking his character and it's going to be less a Batman, fighting crime on the street and more of a superhero.
It's funny we're getting two Batman-esque characters. Well, we're getting Batman and a Batman-esque character in March.
Yeah. I thought you didn't think that he was like Batman.
A Batman-esque.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and talk for a moment, have a little bit of a dad moment here.
I am your father.
Moon Knight, you guys were just talking about, it seems to be bringing in stories of these ancient mythological gods, which isn't really unusual in the MCU. You said it yourself, Sam. We've seen this already this year, or in the last year. I guess that was last year, with the Eternals. I guess, of course, we've got one of the original Phase 1 Avengers in Thor, who's the god of thunder. He's still around. Everyone knows that Loki is the god of mischief. And some might believe that as Christians, we have a problem with this, that we would kind of wholeheartedly agree with Steve Rogers' assessment of Thor in the Avengers movie. There's only one God, ma'am. It's actually part of the lead into BB Nate's segment every week. There's only one God, ma'am, and he doesn't dress like that. But in truth, the Bible really doesn't shy away from the idea of these supernatural beings being worshipped as deities. One of the most famous stories in the Bible is the confrontation between Moses and Pharaoh in Egypt. And it truly is centered on the God of the Hebrews showing his power over the gods of Egypt. The Bible is a supernatural book. It is filled with supernatural stories about supernatural beings. And a central truth of the Bible is that the God Yahweh, the God of the Bible, he just has no equal. And that's where we land on that idea there. In what may or may not be another coincidence, the Moon Knight release date of March 30th means that the finale of the series takes place just 2 days before the release of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The show's villain tells Oscar Isaac to embrace the chaos with that. Now, Wanda Maximoff, who's going to be obviously a major character in Doctor Strange 2, is gifted in using chaos magic. So from my perspective, all that's left is a Mephisto theory.
Maybe that's what's the bad guy's name or the guy who's playing the bad guy in this?
Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, maybe he's actually Mephisto.
All right, we got a Mephisto reference in there. All right. We don't really have a lot of movie stuff in this week.
No.
I mean, other than the fact that the Spider-Man is swinging back into the top spot at the box office. And then there is a movie that we wanted to see, or that I wanted to see and planned on, but decided not to at the last minute. We'll talk a little bit about that. That's up next on Movie Moments.
At last, we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last, we will have revenge.
Well, there are actually a dozen movies listed as being released this weekend, but none of them are being released nationally. So there's nothing really worth talking about here. But, Dad, you and Mom almost went to see Redeeming Love last week.
We
now,
did.
Explain why you didn't.
Because Mom, I had done some research earlier in the week, even before the show, and tried to find out, the MPA rating had, it mentioned sexual content, but I couldn't find anything about it. So I kind of made the assumption that because we're dealing with prostitution, that was a sexual content that they were talking about. And that made sense to me, especially because this was based upon what was considered a Christian fiction novel from 30 years ago. I didn't think that we'd have a lot of overt sexuality in this. Apparently, Mom found out that I was wrong, and she found that there's a lot of sexual content in this. So I wanted to make sure that we talked about that on this show, since we didn't get to really go into detail on that last week. Normally, this would have been a movie that she and I were going to go see, because
I was going to take Savannah on a date,
and then we found out that it has got a lot of really intense sexual content in it, which makes no sense to me. I'm a lot disappointed that they did that, because it doesn't make sense. But that's why we didn't go. So
this is why I check Parents Guide and stuff before every movie we see.
You wouldn't think you'd have to check one based on a Christian story,
a Christian fiction novel based on the book of the Bible.
Yeah,
you don't think
there's some
irony,
lost in translation stuff when you go from a Christian book to a Christian novel.
There's some
to a
irony
movie.
talking about a prostitute who is, abused sexually and objectified, and then you go and put sexual stuff in the movie.
Yeah, it's not.
Anyway.
But for movie news, moving on, looks like Knives Out 2 will have a release date of the end of this year.
Yay!
With the premiere at the Fall Festival.
Yeah, nice.
So that's exciting. We get Rian Johnson and a bunch of big actors again.
Will they kind of be doing with the Knives Out like what they did with Murder on the Orient Express?
Yes,
it's like the same universe, really just following the detective.
Yeah, it's only following him and his stories and cases that he goes through. With a bunch of A-list actors again as playing the cast.
Very similar to
very similar.
What's the other one that's coming out?
Death on the Nile.
Death on the Nile.
Yes, that's it.
Is what it is. Now for box office numbers, Spider-Man No Way Home rose to the top again with 14 million domestic and now has 1.7 billion worldwide, which is insane, making it the number 6 highest grossing movie of all time.
Savannah and I were going to go see that after we realized Redeeming Love wasn't going to work, but then the theater closed because all the businesses in that area got their water shut down or something.
Got to pay the water bill.
Yeah. Well, and Scream made a solid 12 million domestic with an 85 million worldwide. It's not bad. And Sing 2 still at third place with 5 million domestic and 128 million worldwide. I don't think that Scream's going to make its budget back and have any profit.
What was its budget?
Oh, I think it was 150 maybe.
Wow, that's not good.
Not good at all.
Right.
But it's back to me again.
Keep going, bro.
Well, this week was all about drama, but it still felt right. We'll get into the predictable betrayal and more.
In what? Spider-Man or Spider-Man?
Spider-Man and Lois?
Or, you could do Lois and Clark like you said earlier.
I did say Lois and Clark when we were talking about this earlier. That's a flashback right there.
Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I can fly.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
The people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
That man has no limits.
Superpowers in the comics?
In some versions, I'm sure.
Like what? She become super...
Have you ever heard of this thing? It's kind of been popular called the multiverse. I'm sure she did.
There's an Elseworld story or something like that where it happened. But Dad, let's go with you because Sammy hasn't watched any of this show.
I still haven't.
A rating of 1 to 10 predictable betrayals.
Who's the predictable betrayal?
Oh, Tal Rowe.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We all saw it coming right as we saw him.
Yeah. I give it a 6.5.
Yee.
It was fine.
Yeah.
I'm ready for that part was cool, that the Tauro stuff, but it was, like you said, it was predictable. So as a result,
that's where I'm talking about with the CW trap. It was, they set something up and you're like, we know what's going to happen. You're just wasting time here. He's going to betray him. We all saw it coming, but let's actually talk about a few big moments from this episode, or at least setting up for the rest of this series. Now,
Sam, you can just go ahead and have a seat and just,
Lana is now running for mayor after Daniel Hart backed
Saw
out.
that one coming too.
Honestly,
I did too.
I'm surprised this didn't happen earlier, but I'm really excited to see where it goes. Now, Dad, what do you think of this choice? Good or just a little forced?
As soon as she was working on the mayoral campaign, and in the last episode, you could tell she was the smart one of the two, smarter than the guy running for mayor, better communicator than the one running for mayor, more liked than the one running for mayor. I'm like, oh, that guy ain't going to be mayor, is what I was thinking. And so, it's fine and it's forced.
Yeah.
It's very CW. That was a very CW moment too.
Like CW.
That's not good.
It was set up in the last season that it was going to happen when she started talking with the mayor, and we saw how corrupt he was, and she wanted to fight against him in ways. But honestly, they could have just skipped all that stuff in the last episode and just have her run for mayor a little earlier.
Did season 1 have its CW moments? Or
of course, it had its CW influences, but it's also set itself apart a lot from the CW.
Okay.
And this
one still is setting itself apart
a lot. It's
just I was worried that this is like it could be an indication that it's slipping.
not yet. No, okay. I think that we won't get that. But next one, Lois and cancel culture. Looks like podcasts can be influential.
I know that was kind of a cool moment.
It was.
Yeah, podcast.
But Lois has an old story brought up, and it's being discredited because even though she knows that everything that was in it was true, the only one who can back up her story is her sister. Her sister was actually the one the article was about. She was a part of
you got to explain this because
so I was actually wrong. I guessed that it was in Supergirl. I don't think it was. This is brand new, but I guess it was her sister that was a part of the cult and everything. That was just intuition right there. But her sister was a part of a cult at one point, and she was told that the sister was told to find her second self or her inner self, and so to do that, she decided that the best way to do that was take a bunch of pills, and she almost drowned in her bathtub. Lois eventually found her and saved her and took her out of the cult.
Wow.
But it was a big thing. She exposed the cult and everything and had a bunch of sources back up that stuff. She had one anonymous source, and it was her sister, the one that backed everything up. But this podcast discredited and is starting to poke holes into the sources. So the sources are backing down and saying what they said wasn't true. And I wonder why they're doing that. But everything with that. And the only one that can keep Lois and her credibility is her sister, but she doesn't want to make that really known because that's hard for her sister to go through that again. Now, Dad, what do you think of this new plot line, and how will it connect to the larger story? Because we had Lois with Morgan Edge and everything in the first season, and we were all kind of like, well, how is this going to connect to Superman? And it eventually really did. But do you think this will connect with Superman in any way?
I think that they have this master plan they're going to try to pull it in with. But again, it's kind of like the Morgan Edge thing. It doesn't feel like it necessarily connects. It did in that first season. So that's a good point that you're bringing up there, BB Nate. I do think it's interesting about the podcast. And I'll mention this right now. You know, podcasts should not be treated as being journalistically as relevant as a news source would be. Mm-hmm. You know, like you shouldn't get your entertainment news from us.
No,
you shouldn't get your Star Wars news and take what we say as being fact. You know, we try to report, and when we talk about something, we try to do it from a position of accuracy. We have some fun when we poke at bad news stuff with it, but it is interesting to me that that's happening. And I think that that's a plot line that I want to see play out just from a podcaster's perspective and how that goes in. But you also have to I feel like there may be too many Lois plot lines going on right now because you've got Lois with Natalie.
I feel like that's starting to just become more of a normal family thing.
Yeah.
So I
maybe
feel like that's,
with John Henry, there was some weirdness there in this episode as well. And now we've got this podcast and what's going on at the local Gazette. So I'm concerned that that's too many plot lines. But
you think they might have a Cobra Kai happen, introducing too many plot lines and not wrap them up by the end?
I'm worried that may be the case.
I feel like they know what they're doing. And I'm hoping they do because I was surprised by season 1 and them having everything with that. Now this next one, Tal-Rho betrayed Clark.
What?
I know, it's a huge shocker. But we actually found out why Clark is having these visions from his mother.
Yeah,
Jordan was
cool.
there too, thankfully, because he protected his dad pretty well from Tal-Rho. Now, Dad, we both saw this coming, but it looks like Doomsday is causing these visions. Do you think Jordan is going to save his dad at the end of the season against Doomsday? Maybe even sacrifice himself.
Oh, I don't
to turn the head on Death of Superman. It's his son instead.
No, that's not happening.
I could see it happen.
I don't think that's going to happen. But what I do think could happen is both Jordan and Superman are battling Doomsday, and Superman has to sacrifice himself for Jordan with that. And I think that's
because we have to have Superman and Lois, but I'm wondering if
but we all know what happens in the rest of the story. Superman comes back.
I know exactly. We all know that Superman comes back. If we have it turn on Jordan, that's going to add another depth to Superman for season 3. Him dealing with the grief of losing his son. And then, of course, we could have Jordan come back because he does have the powers. But we could see all of this happening. Maybe Jonathan at some point gets powers, and then Superman's worried about training him in case the same thing happens with Jordan.
I mean, I know I have no right to speak into this, but I'm just saying, as a storyline, I think that sounds interesting.
Which one?
His son dying.
Jordan dying?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it'd be tragic.
Because we did see
but I think
in
it's
this episode that Jordan was willing to sacrifice himself for his father.
He was. Yeah, that was more of the surprising moment of that. The Tal Rose stuff was not surprising.
No.
The Jordan stuff in that scene was what was surprising. So
I love the Jordan stuff. But this season is pretty good so far. But I'm happy Doomsday is getting a full reveal in the next episode. Just move the story along. Well, make sure
Do
to
y'all know what he even looks like yet?
We kind of have an outline-esque look, but it's looking like it's going to be super comic accurate for his first look. Nice. But make sure to catch the reveal tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern on the CW network.
Or you can watch it on the CW app the next day like we have to.
Yeah, because we don't have a way to watch it.
Good job, Evie Nate.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks. Yeah. All right, anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
We've finally gotten a title announcement from the Lord of the Rings series. It's The Rings of Powers. This really neat video with Nathan revealed this week practical effects of them like forging the logo with the new Galadriel giving that speech that she gives at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, talking about the Rings of Power. So I'm excited. If they put this much effort into just a title announcement, how's the show going to be?
The show is the most expensive show ever made, right?
Each episode's like a movie budget.
Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah.
I hope it's good.
They're putting a really big gamble on this. They better not screw up.
Yeah, because they aren't Disney Plus. They haven't had a show.
They are banking on this becoming Game of Thrones level.
Yeah,
they are banking on that. They've had some hits. The Boys is a hit.
The Boys was a hit.
Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Invincible.
Invincible took the world by storm, and I feel like they're like, okay, well, we're starting to make ourselves known with the HBO Max crowd, with the Disney Plus.
Yeah,
they're taking a huge risk. Well, Matt Reeves officially released the musical theme for The Batman. Yeah, that's really good.
We both listened to it multiple times at this point.
Many times, and it is fantastic.
Yeah, you liked it?
Oh, I absolutely loved it.
All right. I haven't listened to it yet.
You need to.
You should.
I should. All right. A credible leak suggests that Jedi Fallen Order 2 will be released in Q4 2022 with a title announcement, or with an actual announcement likely to come on May the 4th.
What's Q4?
Fourth quarter.
It's like the fourth quarter of the year.
Okay.
It goes by more budget kind of stuff, and that's what normal.
Gotcha.
You didn't know what Q4 was? You really didn't know that? You're not just pretending?
Nope.
I feel like such a failure as a father. All right.
Hey,
I know. BB Nate knew it.
Probably because I listened to the Disney investors calls
That's true,
years ago to get the Rise of Skywalker title announcement.
This Friday we have again my interview with Adam Bray, the most interesting man in the nerdery. Make sure you listen to that one. Thank you, cufflinks.com, for sponsoring the show. We truly do appreciate it. And for all of you listening, thank you so much for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast.
Yes, and if you had a good time listening, it would be awesome. Hopefully, if it would be awesome if you could share this with your friends.
Yeah, and of course, the show is only a small part of the Tatooine Sons world. So if you like the show so much you want more of it, like us on Facebook and join our Facebook discussion group, as well as follow us on Twitter to get in on all the action, and keep up to date on everything we got going on at TatooineSons.com.
That's right. Don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss our next episode, and give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podchaser.com, whatever podcast app you prefer. Anything else you gentlemen would like to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Joy, please.